In our last trip we arrived in Portland Harbour and spent the night in the Portland Marina. The following morning we were up early for the next stage of our journey, this time east from Portland Harbour, around St Albans Head and Anvil Point, and then on to the Needles Channel and into the Solent on our way to Portsmouth and our home in the Royal Clarence Marina in Gosport.
Saying goodbye to Portland Marina, 6 o'clock in the morning, very low cloud, but there is a bit of breeze which is nice, and we're just motoring across the harbour to get out into the channel. But I hope this cloud lifts. A bit gloomy at the moment. Anyway, we've had breakfast and we're on our way. Well, we're off, leaving Portland. Wind on pretty much on the beam at about 11-12 knots, and we're chonking along at 4.5. Looks very murky over there, doesn't it? But hopefully the sun will burn that off soon and we'll have a nice day. Look at that, we got sunshine. I can feel the heat of the sun. Doing pretty much 6 knots through the water, a bit more over the ground because the tide's with us, and the day is improving by the minute. This isn't so good. It's got really foggy. Fortunately we know where we are, so it's not so bad, but keeping a very careful lookout. It's still foggy, and we've now got the foghorn out. Go for it, Bill. Ooh, that's loud. Nobody answering, which is a good sign. There's sunlight on the water up ahead, so hopefully this will burn off pretty quickly. Don't like fog at all. Don't think anybody does really, do they? Well, this is where we are on the chart plotter. This is St Albans Head over here. We're just going to go through the edge of the race by the look of it, and through the two yellow buoys which mark the end of the firing range. We're doing 6.2 boat knots, 8.6 over the ground at the moment. The tide's quite strongly in our favour. This is Anvil Point, and there's the waypoint we're going to at the moment. When we get a bit closer on, move it across to the Isle of Wight. Having a really quite fast trip, even though we can't actually see very much outside. We're glad when this fog lifts. Feel a lot more comfortable then, but fine at the moment. But 8.4 knots over the ground is very acceptable. There's the first of the DZ yellow buoys for the firing range. About a mile further on there's another one, so we know exactly where we are, even though we can't see very far at the moment. We'll be able to see the tide on this in a minute. There's a fair roaring tide. It's quite surreal. We've got sunshine, it's quite warm, but visibility is not very good, and we're just coming into the St Albans Head race. As you can see, it's getting a bit lumpy, but we've got quite a big tide under us, which is causing a bit of a problem, but it's not showing any signs of breaking, so I think we have a fairly smooth passage through it. Through the St Albans Head race, and as you can see, the fog is disappearing. Still, we can't see the land to the north. That still looks murky, but it is improving by the minute, so very pleased about that. Speed over the ground at the moment about 9.5 knots. This tide really running hard. Coming out of the gloom over there is Anvil Point. There's a better shot of St Albans Head, and we're now heading towards the Needles Channel, the Isle of Wight. Can't see it yet, but we know where it is. Well, just when we thought the fog was going to go away forever, it's come back down again. So we're
Sailing along in a goldfish bowl at the moment. No sign of anything. Hopefully it will disappear fairly quickly again. About 12 miles from the Needles at the moment, in a sort of sloppy sort of sea, but we're doing about 7 knots over the ground, despite only doing barely 4.5 most of the time through the water. So, but it's a bit alarming when you suddenly can't see anything. Somewhere ahead of us is the Isle of Wight, and we're only about 4 miles away, and it's completely obliterated by this fog. So we're relying very heavily on the GPS to put us where we need to be, but keeping a close eye on what we can't see really, and hoping we don't bump into anything or anything bump into us. But it really has come down close. We thought by now the sun would have burnt it off, but it's not showing any signs at the moment. We're motoring now. The winds drop right away, and we're probably only a couple of miles away from the island. I can't see anything at all, but it is opening up. We can begin to see further and further away. The trouble with having the engine on, you can't hear other people's engines like you can when you're sailing, but it's pretty claggy. Warm enough, pleasant enough, but it'd be nice to see where we're going. There's a cardinal buoy, not very far away. And we're now heading straight up the Needles Channel. We simply could not do this without the GPS, I don't think. This is amazing, really. We're here. This is the Needles lighthouse just there, and I've just set a waypoint up the channel. What we're worried about is this tide, which is potential to carry us across this way, but the autopilot will compensate for that. And we can see that buoy, but we cannot see any of this yet. It's really quite murky out there. Anyway, but we're doing 6.2 knots over the ground, 4.2 knots through the water, so that we're getting a bit of this tide pushing us up there. But this is the Needles entrance, which will take us into the Solent. Well, the Needles lighthouse is over there. I can guarantee that, even though I can't see it. We can hear the foghorn. There it goes. That's the foghorn, and I can just see a vestige of the cliff. Yeah, really is thick, close to the island. I've seen it do this from a distance, where the sea fret runs in and then goes up over the cliff from the island, and I think that's what we're in. I don't know if this is kind of going to come out on the camera, but you can just see the lighthouse. The GPS and autopilot are taking us straight up the Needles Channel. The tide's with us, and we're going past it pretty quickly and heading into the Solent. We passed the Needles now and keeping to the starboard side of the channel. We heard this boat's foghorn before we saw it. He's well over to the other side of the channel, so we've got good separation. We're a fair way down the channel now and can clearly see the shore. Looking back towards the Needles though, you can see the fog lifting, though it's still a pretty black back there. And looking ahead, we can now see Hurst Narrows and boats sailing in the Solent, so we're nearly home. There's Hurst Castle in the gloom, and it looks like the fog's finally clearing. So we've done really well to leave Portland at 6 o'clock this morning, and it's not even 12 o'clock yet. We've still got the tide with us. You can see the tide on the buoy. That's really helping us along. This is some boat that will beat against the wind and against the tide and make any progress in here. but it looks like it is. I don't know what it is, but it's boy, it's sailing tight to the wind. Modern racing yacht design. Look at it go. Well, we certainly couldn't do that with dear old Zephyr 4, that's for sure. We're well into the Solent now, and the tide is just changing against us, and the wind is steadily increasing. Just heading towards Cowes. The bit sticking out is Cowes, and then Gosport's just beyond it. And we're doing 6.6, 6.7 over through the water, and about the same over the ground. We've finally run out of fair tide, so but we'll be in Gosport in an hour and a half, 2 hours, something like that. So all looking good. Bill's concentrating really hard because he's trying to scrape round Cowes without us having to change sail settings and stuff. If you look at the wind indicator, you can see that it's a very, very broad reach, and in fact almost behind us. And if you get the Genoa behind the main, then it gets blanketed and flaps, and that's what he's trying to avoid doing. So he's sailing a very fine line and getting better by the minute. We've just realised that we are right in the path of a full-on race from Cowes. It turned out to be the Morgan Cup with about 100 entries, so we jibed quickly and scuttled across the Solent to keep out of their way. We've managed to avoid the racing fleet and get across the other side, get the mainsail down, and we're now just under the Genoa. And we've got 23 knots of wind, and we're doing 5.5 through the water, probably about the same over the ground. The tide's turned, that's why the Solent's gone all lumpy. So we've got a foul tide against us now for this last little bit from Calshot to Portsmouth. Though we're not going so fast sailing with just the Genoa, the boat is more easily steered, and we can leave it to the autopilot, and now we can enjoy a cup of tea and a biscuit. And here we are back. There's the green post, Anvil Point, and there's Portsmouth entrance coming into view. It's quite surprisingly rough in here on occasions, like now. And we got 2 reefs in the Genoa, and that's all, and we're doing nearly 6 knots with 23, 24 knots of wind behind us. Well, here we are in the shelter of Portsmouth Harbour and making our way to our berth in the Royal Clarence Marina, Gosport. Thanks ever so for watching. This is the last video of our June trip to the West Country. If you haven't seen them already, there are 8 previous videos for you to binge on. I'd really appreciate a like and a subscribe, and I'm always so pleased to answer your comments. Do take care.